If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
A warm and friendly hello! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the Beeson Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you guys. Joining me in segment number 2, Mike Randle. He does such good work over at FTN Network. We're going to be talking about what we all saw this weekend. We're going to be taking a look at the tenor of some of these conferences. Certainly going to be diving in on the top teams out there in the SEC and why some of these teams are being a little bit over/undervalued based on the perception around them as well. We'll also take a look at a few games for Monday. In the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Monday as we hit some bank shots. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at GNet_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM, naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Didn't get in any Twitter/X questions today, and was not the most expansive slate in college basketball on Sunday, but there were still some fun games. So let's take a look back at it all, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Unfortunately, a couple too many late fouls costed us with the DK Network write-up of the under in Illinois versus Rutgers. Still holding pretty steady, though. I will take 45-31 at this point of the season anytime. This has been my best start, so just have to bounce back on Monday. But that said, Illinois, they get it done by a count of 86-63. Illinois, by the way, now 10-5-3 against the spread, so they've been pretty dominant with that regard. For Rutgers, they did their part in terms of helping out the under with their offense, not so much on defense, as they go 3 of 14 from three-point range. For Rutgers, you were able to have Cliff Omarui go off for 22 points, 9 rebounds. Nobody else really helped him out, and Terrence Shannon came in off the bench. He had 16 points, 4 assists for an Illinois team that did turn the ball over 13 times, and they went to 6 of 27 from 3, but they got to the free throw line 27 times. They did a good job dominating on the boards as well, 46 of 32, and for Illinois, they legitimately have each other top 6 scorers, giving you at least 4 rebounds per game. So an impressive showing there. A not so impressive showing once again from Maryland, who's now 7-12 against the spread, and they really have been able to hit unders for you. 61-59. Michigan State pulls that out as they go 6 of 17 from three-point range. While this bunch in Maryland is able to run you off the three-point arc, they really do give it up when you are able to get off those open three-point looks. And by the way, for this Maryland team, in terms of their over rate, they are currently playing just 36% of their games to the over. 12 unders to 7 overs for Maryland. Actually, Rutgers is your best under team in the conference with the over hitting on Sunday. They've now played just 6 overs to 12 unders, but for this Maryland team, 8 of 22 from three-point range. A very above-average three-point night for them, but that said, they've lost the turnover battle 18-8, and that's where they got cooked in this game because they also won the rebound battle by count 37-22. Julian Reese was able to chip in there, 3 blocks, 10 points, 12 rebounds, but for Michigan State, they were able to have Trey Hallman coming off the bench. He had 12 points. He went 3 of 4 from three-point range, and then Ty Walker, 15 points, 5 assists, 5 steals. Michigan State, by not turning the ball over, they were able to find a way to get it done, and a team that did not find a way to get it done, that would be Memphis. Back-to-back losses for them after they entered into the week, riding a 10-plus game win streak, 81-79. Tulane finds a way to be able to pull it on, and it looked like Memphis was going to be able to break away in this one. They were leading with about 9 minutes remaining, and then Tulane, they had a very nice response. For Tulane, they were able to get 22 points out of Sion James, who just stuffed the stat sheet. He also had 6 assists, 7 rebounds for a Tulane team that went 10 of 24 from three-point range. Memphis right there, 9 of 24 from distance. Adavi Jones did all that he could, 32 points, 11 rebounds. Just those ancillary guards not being able to step up for this team was very costly. They were also without Caleb Mills in this game as well. Malcolm Dandridge should have 8 blocks of his own, but for this Tulane team, they were able to win the turnover battle 14-7. That proved to be absolutely massive, along with Memphis shooting 14 of 22 at the free throw line. Never neglect handicapping handicaping free throw shooting when it comes to a lot of these games. And don't neglect this. How about a really good under team in South Florida being able to cash in another under? They have now played 12 unders or just 4 overs thus far this season. A win, but no cover on a lot of numbers. A lot of places close this at 4.5, with South Florida winning by kind of 72-68. And this was a little bit of a rough one if you did lay it with South Florida, as they were up double figures with about 10 or so minutes remaining. But Wichita State did have Harnell Beverly on their side, despite the fact that this team went 2 of 19 from 3-point range. Jacoby Rogers, 11 points on 13 shots. Beverly did chip in there, 15 points, 6 boards, and the bench. They were able to do a really solid job as well. Combined 32 points from your bench pieces for Wichita State. And South Florida, just 6 of 25 from 3-point range themselves. Keshawn Pryor, he had 25 points, 10 rebounds. But South Florida, they lose the rebound medal 39-31. And Wichita State, they were able to get a nice quality cover. We saw a lot of Metro Atlantic action on Sunday as well. Thank you to the Metro Atlantic, because not a lot of other teams want to play on Sundays. And Niagara has been one of your best over teams in all of college basketball. They and Fairfield. And Niagara, they were able to hit an over in this one. They're now 14-3 to the over. And they get this one done all right on the money line, 82-71. Mount St. Mary's was a 5.5 point favorite. And Mount St. Mary's went 1 of 4 from 3. Niagara, very atypical 3-point shooting day, but they go 12 of 18 from distance. You're able to get 23 points out of Ahmad Henderson, the second. It certainly has been a Niagara defense that has been diminished from past years, but offense has been a lightning rod, and they were able to get that one in. And then Fairfield, they played it over, and they were on a lot of lines unable to get it done. This was an opener more around about a 6.5 to a 7, but this closed closer to 8, 8.5 for Fairfield. They were up double figures throughout much of the second half, but Manhattan was able to pull within 3 with about 3 minutes remaining, and Manhattan loses by kind of 82-75 to get the cover, despite the fact that Fairfield goes 15 of 27 from 3. Manhattan, they themselves go 12 of 34 from distance, as off the bench, you got a 4 of 5 3-point shooting effort out of Perry Cohen, who I'm not sure why he hasn't gotten more minutes. Meanwhile, Bryson Goodine off the bench for Fairfield, he had 13 points on 3 of 5 3-point shooting, and then you were able to get 9 rebounds as well from Peyton Smith for Fairfield to be able to do a solid job playing even up on the glass, winning that turnover battle by kind of 14-8. So some very intriguing results there. And then you've also got one of your top under teams in all of college basketball playing another under. Maris unable to cover the spread, but they take down Siena by a count of 50-48. A game in which Siena scored 8 points in the final 13-27 of this game. It got really, really ugly, and as a matter of fact, for the Siena bunch, they were able to get off to a 20-4 run, and from the 11:53 mark on, they scored a grand total of 28 points. They got outscored 20-8 in the final 13-plus minutes of this game, as Sean Dewar-Gordon literally had nearly half of the team's points. He had 16 points, 5 boards. Well, he had 33% of the team's points, but nobody else on the roster had north of 7 points for a Siena bunch that goes 8 of 15 at the free throw line, and they had 20 turnovers and 17 made buckets. Meanwhile, for Maris, they were just cold from the floor. We've been seeing that all season long. We saw that when I wrote them up with my DK Nova right a few days ago. 2 of 16 from 3-point range, but Max Allen, 15 points, 9 rebounds, powers Maris to a victory, and that powers yet another under. And then the upchucking of the day did have to go to Iona. Iona was up 12 points with less than 5 minutes remaining in this one, and they make like your buddy at the bar, and they cannot close. Iona loses Quinnipiac 91-87 on a relative pick 'em line. Quinnipiac in a lot of spots, they were laying one. I personally laid one with them as well, and for Quinnipiac, he go just 5 of 16 from 3-point range, but they were able to have Paul Otinho be able to chip in there a double-double, 15 points, 10 rebounds. Quinnipiac wins the battle on the glass 27-22, as both of these teams had quite a few turnovers. Quinnipiac lost that battle by 1, and Eden Tretout was able to chip in there 30 points for Iona. He goes 6 of 11 from 3-point range, but for Quinnipiac, 20 of 22 at the free throw line and 59% shooting overall from the floor. That powers them to victory, and this is an Iona team that all of a sudden against the spread, they are now sitting at 9-9. It's been very topsy-turvy for them. Ryder has actually been your worst cover 8 team out there in the Metro Atlantic. They're at just 6-11 against the spread. Meanwhile, St. Peter's are 10-5 against the spread. They take down Canisius by a count of 70-59. For St. Peter's, they go 8 of 19 from 3-point range, but they keep this game under because they were able to force Canisius into 17 turnovers, which is the same amount of made field goals that they had in this one. So St. Peter's, they were able to get it done out there in the NEC. This is always a haven of unders, especially in conference play. And old Merrimack, was able to get it done once again. The Merry Men of Merrimack were able to get a 63-47 win over a Stone Hill team that has just been getting absolutely romped. For Merrimack, they're actually just 10 unders to 8 overs, so they're actually playing more overs than they have in past years, but for Merrimack, just an absolute stymieing defense. For Stone Hill, they go 6 of 30 from three-point range with 22 turnovers, and Merrimack went 11 of 41 from three-point range, and they went 9 of 18 on their two, so that was a very interesting result. Actually, one of your best under teams in all of college basketball has been LIU, Long Island. They lose to Central Connecticut 72-63. Long Island, 4 overs, 12 unders, and a push. Their defense has been a little bit better this year. The offense has been all over the place as they go. LIU does 4 of 15 from three-point range, 9 of 18 at the free throw line, while Central Connecticut goes 20 of 25 at the charity stripe, and this was a really bad non-cover for an LIU team that closed right around 8.5-point underdogs for LIU. They actually had a lead with about 7.5 minutes remaining. This was a game that was very nip and tuck, and then for LIU, they pretty much flatlined as they were down 64-63 with $1:58 remaining, and then from there, they would not score again to allow Central Connecticut to be able to get the cover in that one. And then if you're looking at Lemoyne, all of a sudden they've been able to get a little bit hot, 94-57. They take down St. Francis of Pennsylvania in a pretty nice masterclass out there if you're looking at NEC teams and the way that they've been able to cover the spread. Lemoyne now 11-4-1 against the spread. Meanwhile, Stony, I alluded to a little bit earlier, 5-15 against the spread. And then we did see Utah win but not cover against Oregon, 80-77 the final as Oregon. They go 12 of 24 from three-point range. Jermaine Cuisinart, 26 points, and then Fali Dante, 23 points, 10 boards, 6 assists. Welcome back to him. But even with Raleigh Worcester out of the fold for Utah, they were able to play some pretty efficient offense. They did lose the turnover battle 14-8, but they did go 11 of 27 from three-point range, and they had on their side a man that was able to chip in their 24 points to Davion Smith, 9 boards, 9 assists, so 1 board, 1 assist away from a triple-double. Nice cover for Oregon, but no win for them. And for Florida Atlantic, they are still searching for their first cover in American Conference play. They get the win, but they required overtime as a 16.5-point favorite against UTSA. Meet for the Roadrunners, 112-103 the final. And Florida Atlantic has really been playing quite a few overs for you as well. For Florida Atlantic, 17 of 35 from three-point range. John L. Davis, Elijah Martin, they combined for 60 points in this one, but the defense has really taken a fall off. For Florida Atlantic, they do win the turnover battle 13-7, but for UTSA, they go 25 of 32 at the free throw line as Jordan Ivy Curry, 38 points off the bench. That has to be the most points we've seen off the bench for any player thus far this season. And for UTSA, they have now played 12 overs at 600. So they have been a very nice over team for you this season. And Indiana State has been a relatively good over team as well. But they don't play the over in this one against Murray State. But they do get a very resounding win and cover as well, as they're looking strong out there in the Missouri Valley. 72-63 for Indiana State. They go 13 of 29 from three-point range. The 16 turnovers was a little bit unsightly and unlike them, but they do advance to 12-6 against the spread. Meanwhile, for Murray State, they went 7 of 20 from three-point range, but that said, they were not able to do their part on the glass. They lose that battle 39-30. For Murray State, you did have 21 points, 6 boards out of Quincy Anderson, but Indiana State just too good with their three-point shooting. And Robbie Avila at 6'11", 20 points, 5 assists, 7 boards, just absolutely incredible. And what is incredible right now in college basketball, all the overs that we are seeing, my goodness, it's tough to get in under this year. 52% of games overall in college basketball this season have went over the total. 1,596 overs, 1,474 unders. Meanwhile, overall for the season, home underdogs have had a really rough go of it. 389, 396, and 15 against the spread. That's a 49.6% hit rate with favorites overall, hitting at about 51%, 1550. 1494 with quite a few pushes along the way. And if you look at the last 7 days in college basketball, overs are hitting at 58.9%, 198 overs, 138 unders, with home underdogs getting wrecked. 46, 58, and 2 against the spread over the last 7 days. This despite the fact the favorites are just 166, 160, and 10 against the spread. So, I mean, the road favorites have been really just feasting. Meanwhile, the home favorites, they've been having a little bit of a rough time with it. I'm not sure how that works, but road teams are hitting at about 53% against the spread in the last 7 days. So that's what we're seeing in college basketball right now, and that's what we all got on Sunday. Coming up next, we're going to be talking to Mike Randle about how a team's perception and has been leaning to them being perhaps a little bit overrated, underrated. We're going to take a look at some games for Sunday, recap a bit of the weekend, and so much more right here on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peters, and now a part of the Beast and Family Podcast. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peters, and now part of the Beast and Family Podcast. And it is always great to be joined by this man as Mike Randle. He does a tremendous job over at FTN Network, taking a look at this game that we all know and love of college basketball with a podcast of his own, the Screen and the Screener podcast. You're able to catch that wherever you get your podcasts, and he's the chief content officer over there at FTN Network. So while he does an amazing job with college basketball, he's also doing a nice job on the DFS side of things when it comes to taking a look at the NBA. I know that he's been locked in on his NFL player props, as now we're getting into the prime part of the season there as well. And you're able to follow him on Twitter /X at Randle Rant all together. And Mike, great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Great to be back, sir. Busy weekend, divisional, NBA, college basketball, a lot of fun stuff as always, the way we like it.
Yes, absolutely. Could have been made a little bit better if my Green Bay Packers wouldn't have, I don't know, missed a few field goals and things like that. But you know what, all in all, a very good weekend. And when it comes to what we all saw this weekend in college basketball, is there anything that stuck out in terms of a surprise to the positive or the negative? Because certainly the Sunday card really didn't leave a whole lot of shockwaves or anything like that. But it was a very crazy Saturday, in my opinion, with a lot of strange finishes.
You know, people tend to gravitate towards certain teams, Greg, and away from certain teams. The general college basketball public cannot be any colder on the lack of sex appeal for Tennessee and Wisconsin. However, I will tell you that I think this is the year that Rick Barnes and a Wisconsin team that's very solid make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. Tennessee now has the player that they needed. Ever since Chris Lofton was there, remember him, they really haven't had a go-to guy. Dalton Connect is that guy. He makes all these other players like Jonas Adu and Gainey and Triple J, all those guys get into roles they're more comfortable with. And on the other side, Wisconsin is super impressive. They have A.J. Storr, who has brought a new dimension to this team. Tyler Wall is solid. Crawl inside. 6-1 here in the Big Ten. Took care of business against Indiana. Only stumble they had was Penn State, but they beat Northwestern Ohio State, Nebraska, Michigan State. Both these teams do not have national sex appeal. People don't love them. They say they always disappoint. They play a boring style, but you know what? Just as Virginia had a path to make it back after getting upset in the first round, I am starting to feel like Wisconsin and Tennessee have seniors, have solid coaches, and have the schematic to make a deep run this year, which is contrary to what most people think in the public.
With these teams, it's been very interesting to look at them as well, because you mentioned Wisconsin and Tennessee, and hiding in plain sight, these teams have been much better with their offense this year. And how much do you think a team's perception itself really does hurt them as well? Because you take a look at Wisconsin in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. This is a top 35 team. Tennessee a little bit lower than that, but they're now a top 55, top 60 team. These aren't schlubs on offense, but I feel like a lot of people just think, we've seen it in the past with these teams, and they aren't looking at what they've actually seen this season.
No, and what they're doing, Greg, is they're also doing the reverse. I have a lot of concerns about Arizona here. I mean, we just see Arizona scoring the big numbers. You know, they're always high scoring. I don't know if I have the same confidence in them. So, yeah, I think we have to start realizing that teams that share the ball, that are balanced, that are disciplined, that don't turn it over and play solid fundamental defense may have a huge advantage. You'll remember back to that legendary battle in the Final Four between an undefeated Kentucky team and Wisconsin. And that team with Frank the Tank Kaminsky was able to knock off Kentucky. So now when you don't have a team with that level of stars that Kentucky team did, is it possible that we have these boring teams that make a run? Absolutely. And it leads me to my second point, Greg. I know the Big 12 from top to bottom, I guess, is technically the best conference in college basketball, but you are going to be hard-pressed to tell me that Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn, those teams at the top in the SEC, that doesn't represent the strongest top of any conference in college basketball.
It has been incredible what we've seen out of those top SEC teams, and I feel like the SEC really looked themselves in the mirror and made some changes in the offseason. As Mike Randle, who does tremendous work over at FTN Network, is joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, because I just remember last year, it was all about, nobody in the SEC can hit three-pointers to save their lives. It's all defense, even though these teams play up-tempo. There's really not a lot of offense going on. Sans Arkansas was honestly one of the worst teams in the conference as far this season. But how much do you think that the conference really just decided, you know what, we need to make some changes? And the fact that in the offseason you did see Auburn hit the transfer portal. They bring in a JUCO guy like a Chad Baker-Mazara to be able to help things out. Tennessee brings in Dalton Connect. How much do you think that this was just a conference philosophy sort of shift? Because I feel like these teams are much more built to be able to have success in March than they did a season ago, and it's really by committee with those teams that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think what they said, Greg, is, look, we know we can coach defense. We know that Kentucky, Tennessee, Auburn, these teams are going to play strong defensively. I would expect next year Chris Beard at Mississippi to do a similar situation, because he's obviously doing a tremendous job at Mississippi. They continue to be underrated. However, they are struggling on the road. And the reason they're struggling on the road is because they don't have the offense that they need to get over the hump here. They are 15-3, Greg, Mississippi. They lost away at Tennessee by 26. They lost away at LSU. That's a bad loss. And they lost at Auburn by 23 points. So again, I think you see the great coaches who've had sustained success, like Barnes, like you've seen with Pearl, those sort of teams, say, look, we just need some more offense. Cal always gets it. He's had troubles keeping it together, but this year they look elite. I think a guy like Chris Beard does the same thing, Chris Jans, those sort of coaches. But top to bottom, the best coaches to me are in the SEC, and the upper echelon of that conference is better than any conference in college basketball.
And I remember being out there in Nashville, Tennessee. It was my first job out of college during the 2015-16 season. That's the year that Vanderbilt was in the first four. They were lucky to get 3 teams into the NCAA tournament. Ever since then, the coaching hires, to your point, they have been absolutely on point. So I've been very impressed there. And when it comes to top conferences out there in college basketball, certainly the SEC is up there. Certainly the Big 12 is up there as well. And what have you made out of some of these Big 12 results as well? Because I do think that it's been really interesting to see what we've gotten here in the first few weeks. And it does feel like home court advantage just means a whole heck of a lot more in the Big 12 this year than it has in past years, just because with the added travel, bringing in BYU, bringing in Central Florida, it does seem to be taking it out of these road teams, unlike what we've really seen in past years.
Yeah, what's interesting, too, is I talk with Stuckey and Mike Calabrese in the Action Network pod we do every Thursday night. And what's interesting is I greatly underrated the teams, Greg, like your Cincinnati, UCF, who I'm not usually a fan of Johnny Dawkins, but they've had some big wins. Those teams have come in, BYU especially, and have shown out here in the Big 12, where I thought they were going to be totally blown away. I still like Houston. I grabbed them to win the Big 12 at plus 220. Now, that was before Kansas lost to West Virginia, so I'm sure that's changed here. But Kelvin Sampson's squad has lost 2 away games to Iowa State by 4 and 1 at TCU, a good TCU team, by 1, but they've responded well. This is a great game on Tuesday where they go to BYU. That's sort of a separation game here because Mark Pope gets that one, watch out. But if they get that one, I think that can springboard them because then they have Kansas State at home. They go away to Texas before playing Kansas. So it is rough, top to bottom. The bottom teams are just as good as anyone else's. It's just I want to see what teams in the top of the Big 12 separate. Even a team, especially Jamie Dixon, TCU, how good have they played? But they lost their last 2 games, away at Cincinnati in overtime and home to Iowa State. TJ Otzelberger with a spectacular win despite not having Lipsy there, the point guard, out. Huge win for him as well. So really exciting. I want to see who separates because Kansas seems very vulnerable this year.
Yep, this Kansas team has been so interesting to say the least, and I take a look at them as really the most marquee team that's going to be in action on Monday. They and North Carolina. North Carolina is going to take on Wake Forest. That'll be the earlier game in terms of your more primetime Monday games, and then it's Kansas versus Cincinnati. And right now, Cincinnati is about a 7.5 to an 8-point underdog, and I'm sure you're aware as well as I am that this Kansas team just simply does not lose on Big Monday. That said, I'm taking a look at this 7.5 to 8 number. I think it's getting a little bit too lofty. I don't know how you take a look at this game, but I could see this being one of those classic Kansas has a struggle in the second half, pulls it out, but pulls it out by more like 5 to 6 sort of games rather than this being just a Kansas masterclass, because this is a Cincinnati team that I've been pretty impressed by them on glass this far this season.
Yeah, I have as well, too. Wes Miller's done a great job. They struggle to make free throws, and their offense isn't great. They have the worst free throw percentage in the Big 12 here, which is always tough to take on the road in those situations. So I'm debating myself because my instinct when I saw the line was Cincinnati, but I'm trying to dive a little deeper. This could be one of those games where, it's close and then Kansas pulls away at the end. But what I will say to your point is they have not been great at home, Kansas. I know they don't lose, but the cover is a different story. Eastern Illinois on Tuesday, November 28th, they didn't cover. Connecticut on Friday, December 1st, I don't think they covered. Missouri at home didn't cover. TCU didn't cover. Oklahoma, they did cover, but barely. I think the line was 8 and it was 12. So this is a team that has not been great at home at covering the spread. They still need to be able to shoot. Now, listen, that is a bad loss to West Virginia, so they'll be raring to go. But I'm with you here. They're vulnerable. I don't know if Cincinnati's the profile to take advantage of it, but right now my instinct was Cincinnati, but it's right there. And Kansas needs this one because they can't go to 3-3, not with all these other teams they have coming up. After this one, they go away to Iowa State. We know how hard that is. Then they're home to Oklahoma State, which should be a win, before home to Houston, away at Kansas State, and Baylor. That is rough. Oh, and then, by the way, after that, Grant McCaslin out of Texas Tech. So a lot of big games coming up. They're going to be raring to go. Really great game on Big Monday.
Yep, it really is a massive game on Big Monday. And how much do you take a look at spots like that with a Kansas team that, if you just take a look at the trends, they never, ever lose on Big Monday. I think that there's something like 33-0 over the last 19 years at home at Big Monday. So I wouldn't get frisky with the money line for Cincinnati or anything like that. But how much does that play a little bit of a part in your handicapping? Because certainly I don't want it to be an end-all, be-all, but at the same time, I do think that it's always something to be mindful of when a team like a Kansas has domination on Monday, and when a team, like I was mentioning this one last week, Colorado, for example, they just seem to always take it to Oregon whenever Oregon has to go to Boulder.
There's 3. It's a great call. The Colorado one was 1, which I grabbed as well. And then the rule of thumb is what? Oregon always beats Utah, right? I think that was the rule. And then Utah was able to pull it out despite 2 starters. Yet Oregon did cover. In fact, I think they're unique. The other one that I went the other way on is I didn't know, Greg, until I started researching it on Tuesday for my handicap, that Indiana State had lost like 7 of their last 8 to Missouri State, something like that, where they, for some reason, it was like an odd matchup here. And I said, you know what? I really don't care because I think this Indiana State team is that good. So I think you have to be aware of it. And you have to say to yourself, is this one where we're going to break the trend or not? I remember it was a couple of years ago where Oregon always loses at Colorado. They finally broke the trend. So there are times you just have to keep it in the back of your mind as your handicap and see if this is going to be the trend or this is going to be the exception.
Absolutely. And you don't want trends to be an end-all, be-all. I think you do yourself a disservice by being completely oblivious and burying your head in the sand. And at the same time being like, well, Kansas never loses on Big Monday, so I'm going to lay 100 million billion points. That's not the way to go about it either. So I do think that there's always that happy medium when it comes to it. And then the other game that I was alluding to that is pretty large on Monday is this Wake Forest versus North Carolina game. And I've actually liked what I've seen. This Wake Forest team, a little bit more wobbly on the road, but right now North Carolina is an 8-point favorite. Total on this game is 154.5. How do you view this game with a North Carolina team that I can't believe that I'm saying it, but they've actually figured out how to play defense this year?
Yeah, they have. And RJ Davis is again playing at a first-team All-American level. He's so critical to what they do. He drives everything. I like Wake Forest in this game, though. I like Damari Monsanto, who came back. He came back after the injury, only plays 11 minutes, goes 4 of 6 from three-point range. People don't realize Damari Monsanto may be the best three-point shooter in all of college basketball. So they're fully healthy. You have Efton Reed. Hunter Salas has been outstanding for them. Wake Forest stumbled there against NC State. They were up big in that game. But then there was the ejection of Hunter Salas late, I think. So that may have thrown them off a little bit. So to me, the only game they really lost away was Florida State, just one of those situations. But they're 13-5, 5-2. I think they're ready to go. I like them in this game. I like them with the points. I wouldn't be surprised if I sprinkled them the money line also. Steve Forbes does an outstanding job. And the thing I love about Wake, Greg, is you're going to take a team to cover on the road. I hammer this home. They better make their free throws. Wake Forest Demon Deacons, second best in all of college basketball, 80.1% from the free throw line.
Yep, and I personally do like the over in this game as well because here, a point of Monsanto, I think that he's going to be able to make a bunch of threes. Wake Forest a little bit wobbly on the defensive side of things when they're on the road, but they hit their shots absolutely. So I do think that we're going to get a great affair there. As joining me on the show, we do have Mike Randle. It does great work over at FTN Network, and Mike, it is a relatively thin Monday card. We went through the biggest two games, and the rest of it, it's like the Patriot League. We've got a Big Sky game or two. Is there anything else on the card that you are going to be taking a look at, or is it a case where you do stay away from more of that like SWAC, MEAC, what have you, that we typically get on these Mondays?
No, Greg, we're college basketball hoops junkies,
yeah.
So I'm going to find one here. Can somebody tell me when Colgate's ready in the Patriot League? Because I have gotten burned on Colgate over and over again. The Army away, they won, but that was depending on the number you got. Did they win or lose? Bucknell away, I don't think they covered. Lafayette, they lost at home. Navy away, they didn't cover. So I'm waiting for the real Colgate to get going here. They did destroy a BU by 16 at home, so I think that was right around the number. So I'm looking to see, are they ready to go here against Lehigh? This is a Lehigh team that is not very good. They've lost 4 of their last 6. They've lost 3 straight games. They did beat American at home by 2. But that's what I'm looking at because, again, I want regression. I want positive regression if they're underachieving, and I want negative regression. I think they're overachieving. Matt Langle, Colgate. They're normally really solid. Keegan Reckers didn't play one of those games. He did come back last game and got going again. So at some point, Colgate's going to have one of those 85-point games, and it could be Monday against the Lehigh team, finally getting me a cover here with the Red Raiders.
Yep, and with this Lehigh bunch, they've been dealing with an injury to Keith Higgins, their top scorer. It's a Lehigh team that they're certainly playing up-tempo. I remember cashing a ticket on them in the non-conference portion of the season against North Carolina, so they've been able to do an okay job there, but this is a team that is really not playing a whole heck of a lot of defense. Where's CJ McCollum when you need him for this bunch as well? But a man that is always here when we need him, that'd be you, Mike. You do absolutely tremendous work over at FTN Network, taking a look at not just college basketball, but NBA, NFL, and so much more. So let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, follow me on X at Randall Rant. Join me over at FTN. We're killing it at FTN Fantasy. Got a new website rolling out. Our bets are scalding hot. Finally caught fire here, Greg. It's been a battle beginning of the season, up, down, but we've had some good momentum last 2 weeks. And, of course, I got my college basketball betting show. Try to do volume here. Not the volume that Greg does. Greg's you're at a different level, my friend. But I try to do as much volume as I can on Saturday. Accuracy's been going well. Come to the FTN YouTube channel as well. Just hang out, have some coffee. Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me I'm great. Whatever you want, just leave a note there and we'll have a conversation. Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Saturday mornings, 10:30.
Always a fun time with Mike. He does a tremendous job looking at so many different things, and every single time he joins this podcast, lends amazing insights on this game that we all know and love. So big thanks to Mike for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Monday as we get some things done. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It is always great to be joined by Mike Randle. He does tremendous work over at FTN Network, taking a look at this game that we all know and love of college basketball. Every single time he joins this podcast, does a tremendous job lending insights on this game and always making us just a little bit smarter about basketball in general. A big thanks to him for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Monday as we hit some bank shots.
Most financial establishments close at a certain time, but not here. It is time for a side and total on every game on today's betting board bank shots.
Do note that as per usual, any changes are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at June_41. We're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. That's where we go with the games in the bigger conferences first, and then the smaller conference games are going to be at the bottom. The smaller conferences are the Patriot League, the SWAC, the MEAC, the Southland. If we have any Atlantic Sun and independent conference games, that would be Chicago State. Those will be at the bottom as well. Let's get things started, though, with 871, 872 on the card. It is Wake Forest hitting the road to face off against North Carolina. North Carolina, an 8-point favorite. Total on this game, 154.5. I did set my total at 157. I'm going to be taking a look at the over. This is a Wake Forest team that has really been an all-gas, no-break sort of team. This team offensively has been able to light it up, and this team defensively certainly leaving something to be desired. Now, they are going up against a North Carolina team that all of a sudden is a top 40 defense in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, but this Wake Forest team has been essentially a rocket ship with regards to their offense. 31st in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. A team that does the little things as well. They only turn the ball over about 11 or so times per contest. They do a solid job being able to light it up from three-point range, and they also shoot north of 80% at the free throw line. That is a top 5 mark in all of college basketball, but I do think that Armando Bacot is going to be able to win the battle down low, being able to give you 10 rebounds per game, and then Harrison Ingram and his overall versatility, I do think is going to take it out of a Wake Forest team that has certainly been having their woes offensively, and has not been the same team in a roadside shoot record environment rather than at home. For Wake Forest, overall 66th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, but giving up 19.1 points more per 100 possessions in a roadside shoot record environment, as they have now given up at least 80 points in 3 of their last 5 games. They were able to take it to Louisville, and they themselves have been able to get to at least 70 points in, I believe, all but 2 of their games thus far this season. Since Efton Reed has been back in the fold, they've gotten to at least 74 in all but 2 of them as well. But for North Carolina, you do have R.J. Davis leading the way, 20 points, 3.5 assists, shooting 41.5% from 3, and it's a North Carolina team that they're back in the top 100 with regards to tempo. They're shooting 35.5% from 3. They themselves shoot north of 76% at the free throw line, all will only turn the ball over 10.5 times per game. Going up against a Wake Forest team that really doesn't generate a lot of turnovers. Wake Forest, even though they've been very good defensively, they haven't generated a lot of turnovers either, and Damari Monsanto coming back in the fold, that's big for Wake Forest, but he did only play 11 minutes first time out. He did go 4 of 6 from 3-point range. Certainly, I think that there's going to be a bit of regression there, and for Wake Forest, they're shooting 39.5% from 3. It has been a mark that has been able to travel as Hunter Salas, Kevin Boopy Miller, these 2 guys combined for about 35 points, right around 6.5 assists per contest, and then Austin Carr down low, he's able to give you about 7 to 7.5 rebounds per game. While Reed, he gives you about 8.5 rebounds per game, but I do think that North Carolina is going to do a solid job on the glass. They're 21st in all of college basketball with regards to rebound rate, and even with Wake Forest getting some reinforcements in, this is a team that's outside the top 100 with that regard, with the way that North Carolina has been able to defend, and the way that Wake Forest has really given it up from 3-point range. This team is outside of the top 140 with regards to their opponent's 3-point shooting percentage. So, did make my number 9. I'm going to be willing to lay it with North Carolina, and set my total 157. So, looking over, and I'm going to be willing to lay it with the Tar Heels. 873, 874 on the betting board. Hofstra hits the road face-off against Stony Brook. Stony Brook finds themselves as a home underdog of 3 points with your total 142.5. I made Stony Brook the 1.5 point favorite. I'm going to be taking a look at them outright on the money line. Now with Hofstra, they do have the more flashy firepower at the top, as you've got a pair of guys, Charleston Dunbar, along with Tyler Thomas, who have been able to combine for north of 20 points per contest. Both of these guys knocking down north of 37% of their threes. And with Dunbar, he has been able to give the team 7.5 rebounds. They both chip in about 1.2 steals per contest, but really outside that, you don't get a ton. Jaquan Carlos is someone that I do like in terms of his facilitation. He's able to give you about 6 assists per contest, but outside these 3 guys, nobody else on the roster gives you north of 6 points per contest. Dunbar is the only guy that gives you north of 5 rebounds per game as well. And though this is a Stony Brook team that certainly they do have their woes on the glass, I do think that they're going to be able to play even up / be able to win that battle, and that'll lead to them being able to get the job done. This is a Stony Brook team that does rank right around 220th in the country with regards to their rebound rate. Hofstra, meanwhile, they're clocking in 308th. They just need a little bit more out of Jaco Fritz, the 6'10" gentleman that comes in from Canisius. He's been able to give you about 6 points, few rebounds per game. Meanwhile, for Stony Brook, Charles Mado has been able to give you 6 boards, a steal per contest. For a Stony Brook team that does a very good job of taking care of the ball. They're turning the ball over a little bit less than 11 times per contest. You've got a Hofstra team that certainly is going to be giving it up from both 3-point land and inside. This Hofstra team is outside the top 200 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. It is a Stony Brook team that they themselves do leave quite a bit of something to be desired as well. 244th in all of college basketball in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and both of these teams have had their woes with giving it up from 3-point range. Stony Brook outside the top 220 with regards to opponent's 3-point shooting percentage. Meanwhile, this is a Hofstra team that is 294th with regards to opponent's 3-point shooting percentage. You've got Tyler Stevenson Moore shooting nearly 40% from 3-point range, a steal, 15 points per game out of him, and Keenan Fitzmaurice being a true 7-footer that's able to pop threes, is able to give you about 10.5 points per contest. I think that that's going to be big in this spot. spot, along with Andre 3000 Snotty, giving you about 6 rebounds per game. I do think that Stony Brook good to be able to win from within. It's a Stony Brook team that has been much better with their defense recently. In regulation, they have given up 71 points or fewer in 4 of their last 5 games. This is a Hofstra team that they have been having a rough time being able to get it going with their offense, and that is supposed to be their forte. For this Hofstra team, they have failed to break the 70-point plateau in now 3 of their 5 games this calendar year. And for this Hofstra team, if you want to date it back a little bit further, they have been held below the 70-point plateau in all but 5 of their games since the beginning of the month of December. So I do think that Stony Brook gets it done. I do think that we're going to get a little bit more scoring in this game. I did set my total at 143. Both of these teams are outside the top 200 with regards to total possessions per game, but certainly both of these teams have their woes with regards to giving up the 3 ball. So at a 143 or less, looking at the over, and with Stony Brook made them the favorite out of 1.5 points, so going to be looking at Stony Brook outright on the money line to go along with that over. 875, 876 on the betting board. Idaho State hits the road face off against Montana State, and Montana State is a 4.5 to a 5-point favorite. Totals between 137 and 137.5. I made my number 4.5, so seeing the 5 that we've got out there right now, I'm going to be willing to take the points with Idaho State. Idaho State, one of those textbook teams showing that just because you play slow doesn't mean that you play tremendous defense, even though you look at the number and you're like, hey, Idaho State, they're only giving up 68 points per contest. Well, that's a little bit misleading because Idaho State is in the bottom 40 with regards to total possessions per game, and if you take a look at points allowed on a per possession basis, this team is about 304th in all of college basketball. Though I will say, they don't take too much of a fall off on the road, only giving up a 1.5 more in a road/neutral court environment rather than at home. Meanwhile, you've got a Montana State team that certainly leaves quite a bit of something to be desired themselves. They're about 241st in all of college basketball in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Now, I will say this for Montana State. They've got by far the most versatile player out there on the floor. That'd be Robert Ford III. He actually used to play at Idaho State. 14.5 points, nearly 3 steals, 7.9 rebounds, 2.7 assists per contest, all while standing just 6 feet tall. But he doesn't have a lot of support around him. This is a Montana State team that has been able to get about 15.5 points, 4.5 boards out of Brian Baraki, who's shooting about 38.5% from three-point range. And it's a Montana State team that they shoot 75% at the free throw line, 34% from 3. They don't do a terrible job at the free throw line either, but now they do have to go up against an Idaho State team that I do think is going to be able to do the better job on the glass. You've got a pair of guys in Kyrie Huey along with Braden Parker, who've been able to combine for about 11.5 rebounds per game, and just flat out they've got a little bit more size. And with Parker along with Miguel Tomley, they both shoot north of 36% from three-point range. It's an Idaho State team that they also turn the ball over about 11.8 times per contest. And when it comes to this Idaho State team, they have been giving it up from three-point range at home rather than on the road. On the road, Idaho State has actually been halfway decent with their three-point shooting defense at 33.1%. That falls to about 37.5% when they're at home. And this is a Montana State team that they do leave themselves prone to giving up a lot of outside looks as well. They're allowing opponents to shoot about 31.8% from three-point range. They've been a bit better at home rather than on the road, but I do think that Idaho State going to find a way to be able to get some second chances, utilize their size to be able to hold in this game. Idaho State clocking in right around about 240th with regards to their rebound rate. It's a Montana State team that they're right now coming in that neighborhood of about 342nd. So those issues on the glass, I do think are going to be a bit costly for Montana State in a game where I do think that you're going to get some relatively solid defense, but I also do think that you're going to get some late game fouling. So with all that said, did set my total 134.5. These are two teams well outside the top 200 in terms of total possessions per game, and Idaho State well outside the top 300. And for Idaho State, credit where credit is due, much better defensively recently. 66 points or fewer surrendered in 4 of their last 5 games. Meanwhile, Montana State has actually gotten to 75 plus in 4 of their last 5 games. So good old situation, something got to give, and I do think that the defense is going to be exactly what comes to the forefront. I'm going to be taking a look at 5 plus here with Idaho State, and going to be taking a look at the under semi-total 134.5. 877, 878 on the betting board. It is Weber State on the road facing off against Montana. Montana does find themselves as a 1 to 1.5 point favorite. Your total is between 145 and 145.5. I have a flip of favorites. I said Weber State as a 1 point favorite. I'm going to be looking at them outright on the money line. Last time these two teams played, it was a DK Network write-up pick, and I laid the points with Weber State, and they won that game by 30. I don't think that we are going to be seeing a duplication of that. Montana went 3 of 20 from three-point range. Weber State went 9 of 12 from three-point range. I don't think Weber State is going to shoot shoot 75% from three, but Weber State once again is going to have the best player on the floor. That'd be Dylan Jones. 18.5 points, 10 boards, 5 assists, 1.8 steals on 34% three-point shooting. He absolutely does it all for a Weber State team that they're very slow. They're outside the top 300 with regards to total possessions per game, but they're just very efficient in terms of their offense. They only turn the ball over 9.6 times per contest. They shoot 77.5% the free throw line. They shoot 36.5% from three-point range. The defense, it can be a little bit wobbly from time to time, but I mean, it's still relatively solid. They're about 141st in all of college basketball in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and they're going up against a Montana team that's 244th in the country with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage. Now, it is a Weber State team that they're allowing much more from beyond the arc when they're away from home. Weber State, overall, in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage, they're 183rd, with opponents shooting about 34% from three-point range against them. I don't think we're going to see a duplication of the 3 of 20 from the last time around at Aiden Moody. I do think it's doing for a little bit of positivity. Last season shot right around 40% from three. Starting to get back to that right now. Shooting about 37.5% from distance. Just 2 weeks ago, he was clocking in more around 32% from three, as he and Money Williams, great name by the way, combining for about 29.5 points. Money Williams gives you about 3.5 assists per contest for a team that they only do turn the ball over about 10.5 times per game. This is a team, though, that really doesn't give you a lot on the glass. Valau, okay, has been able to give you about 7.7 boards per contest, and then Deshaun Thomas, who's able to give you about 11.5 points, 5.5 rebounds per game. He's the only other player on the roster that's really able to give you north of 4.5 to 5 rebounds per game. For Montana, they're about 123rd with regards to rebound rate despite this, but having Blaze Threat be able to step up, giving nearly 10 points per contest. Steve Verplanken being a 40% three-point shooter with double figures to be able to help out Dylan Jones as big as Weber State. They're right around about 140th with regards to their rebound rate as well. It's a Weber State team that does an incredible job slowing games down, and they're playing against a Montana team that they're in their element playing slow and controlled games, but even though they play a relatively slow tempo, this has been a team that has really popped off with their offense for 80 plus points each out of their last 5 games. Though I will say this, they have given up at least 77 points in 3 of their last 5. Meanwhile, it's a Weber State team that they've been in control. 71 points of fear surrendered in 3 out of their last 4 games. So it is a situation of something's got to give, and I do think that we are going to see quite a bit of defense in this game, despite the fact that both of these teams, they are shot-making teams, but both of these teams, as well as I was alluding to, they're 2 of the slower teams that you're going to find in all of college basketball, well outside the top 225 for both of these teams in terms of total possessions per game, which is why I did set my total at a 139. I'm going to be taking a look at the under. I like Weber State with the best player out there on the floor to be able to get the job done outright on the money line for Weber State. This is the last game on the normal Las Vegas betting board before we hit the extra games, 879, 880. It is Kansas. They play us at Cincinnati. Yes, we are on to Cincinnati. Bill Belichick, and they are on to being 7.5 to 8 point underdogs. Total on this game between 145.5 and 146. Was talking about this with Mike Randle. Certainly, I don't think that Kansas is going to lose this game. They always win outright when it comes to Big Monday. I think that this could be a little bit more of a nip and tuck game, though. I did set my line at a 7. So getting 7.5 to 8, I'm going to be willing to take the points. And it's because Cincinnati has been able to do such a good job down low, getting Aziz Bandango back in the fold, who was the all-WAC Defensive Player of the Year, has been able to give you 9 boards, jumping in there north of a block and a half per contest. That is massive for a Cincinnati team that's currently 6th in all of college basketball with regards to rebound rate, and having Victor Lakeen just be a do-it-all sort of player, I think has also been tremendous. With 13 points, 7.5 boards at 6'11", he's shooting about 32.5% from three-point range, and that's really the Cincinnati team. They don't necessarily have true guards other than perhaps Day-Day Thomas. You get a little bit of Jizzle James as well, with Thomas being more of that scorer, giving you about 3.3 assists, steal and a half, 11.5 points per contest, and has been able to come along for the ride recently. He's been able to give the team 17 assists to 6 turnovers in the last 4 games, going up against a Kansas team that they're going to have the most efficient point guard out there. That would be DeJuan Harris. 7 points, 7 assists. He's been able to shoot 42% from 3, but does get very skittish to shoot. Going up against a Kansas team that they're right around 50th with regards to rebound rate. Their big 2 is going to be the best in this game. There's no question about it. Kevin McCullough, Hunter Dickinson, a combined 39.5 points, 17.5 rebounds. Dickinson still shooting 42% from 3. McCullough shoots 37% from the outside, and Kansas, they always have some pretty demonstrative splits with regards to their three-point shooting and just their overall offense at home rather than on the road. This is a Kansas team that, with regards to points scored on a per-possession basis, they are a top 50 team in all of college basketball. And when it comes to this Kansas bunch, they are scoring right around about 13.5 points more per 100 possessions at home rather than in a road/shoot-record environment. Meanwhile, this is a Cincinnati team that, there's no question, they do take a little bit of a tumble with regards to their defense when they are away from home. For Cincinnati, in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, this team clocking in 16th in all of college basketball, but they are giving up about 14.5 points more per 100 possessions when they leave home. But I do think that Cincinnati going to be able to do just enough with regards to the three-point shooting defense to be able to hold in this game. And it's not a Kansas team that is playing super-duper up-tempo. They're very much a mid-tempo team. And for Kansas, they're about 149th in all of college basketball with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage. While they see a nice boost with their offense at home, their defense, it's relatively stagnant. And they go up against the Cincinnati team that is about 74th in all of college basketball with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage. Though I do think that Kansas gets a nice boost at home. And I think that Kansas gets the job done outright. Having this number at a 7.5 to 8, I feel like has went a little bit too far. I set my number at 7, so I'm going to be taking a look at the points. And with regards to total, I did set it at a 141. I do think that Cincinnati going to do a solid job on the glass, holding Kansas one and done opportunity. So looking at the under, and I'm going to be taking a look at the points with Cincinnati. Now let's hit the extra games.
The normal betting board picks are complete, but there are some extra games today, so we go into the bonus.
306, 635, 306, 636. It is Colgate. They play also Lehigh. Lehigh is an underdog of 12.5 points. So on this game is 144. Did set my line at a 12.5 as well. I'm seeing some 13s out there, and 13 is the official opener. So at a 13 plus, we'll be looking at Lehigh. Starting to see an 11.5 out there as well. If we can actually get that 11.5, I would rather lay that rather than take the 13. It is a Colgate team that each out of the last 3 seasons, they've been a top 10 team in all of college basketball with regards to three-point shooting percentage. They're not quite there this season, but they've done a good job of being able to lock it down from three-point range, much better than they have in past years. Last year, they allowed opponents to shoot 35.6% from three-point range. This year, 31.9% overall. That falls at 29.4% when they're at home, going up against a Lehigh team that's 346th in all of college basketball with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage. Certainly, this is not the Colgate teams of old. They lost quite a bit from last season, but you do have someone in Braden Smith who's able to be a stat sheet sufferer. No relation to the Purdue Braden Smith, but he's able to give you 13.5 points, 5.5 boards, 5.5 assists, shooting 36.5% from three-point range, 5+ assists in each of the team's last 5 games, 6+ rebounds in each of the team's last 5 games, going up against the Lehigh team that has been dealing with that injury to Keith Higgins. He has not been out there since January 6th, leads away with 15 points per contest. Highly don't think that he's probably not going to play in this game. Dom Perlin has been able to give you about 5.5 rebounds per game, just returned to the fold for the team and hasn't looked like himself. Did put up 20 points in that game against Navy, so that was relatively solid, but all in all has been a little bit wobbly since coming back from injury down low. It's a Lehigh team that turns the ball over 13 times per contest, and right now the backcourt space around Tyler Whitney City, shooting 35% from 3, 2.5 assists, 14.5 points per game, just doesn't have a lot of help outside of that. Meanwhile, you've got a Colgate team that does have Keegan Records, who's able to give you about 7 rebounds per game. This is a Colgate team that has been able to do a solid job of taking care of the ball as well, with 11.3 turnovers per game. You'd like to see them shoot better than the sub 70% that they do shoot at the charity stripe, but Colgate, they're about 124th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, giving up 12.1 points fewer per 100 possessions at home rather than in a road/shoot-record environment. And for Lehigh, clocking in well outside the top 200 with that regard, and with this Lehigh team not really being a team that's able to knock down threes, I do think that's going to be a little bit tough for them going up against the Colgate team that now has been able to get to at least 75 points in 3 of their last 5 games. I do think that they make it 4 out of their last 6. I did set my total at a 144.5, so you're at the 144 looking at the over, and with Colgate willing to lay the 11.5 that I'm seeing out there with them right now. 306, 637, 306, 638. Southeast Louisiana is going to be playing us near Northwestern St. Northwestern St does find themselves as an underdog of 7.5 points. Your total on this game between 138 and 138.5, and with Northwestern St, I did set them as an underdog of 14 points, so I'm going to be willing to lay with a Southeast Louisiana team that I know that they leave quite a bit of something to be desired. This team is outside the top 300 in terms of total possessions per game. They're really looking to make things very slow, very grimy, and it's a bunch that shoot about 27.8% from three-point range at home. That is a bottom 40 mark with regards to home three-point shooting percentage, and this is a Northwestern St team that they're starting to be able to knock down some shots. In terms of their three-point shooting percentage, it's still overall for the season 323rd. Northwestern St is outside the top 340 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis as well. You just haven't been able to have a lot of rhyme or reason with regards to what this Northwestern St team is going to be able to give you on a night in, night out basis. They've got Cliff Davis, who's been able to log about 15.5 points per contest, but they don't have a single guy on the roster that's currently currently healthy. That gives you north of 4.5 rebounds per game. Jamison Epps was doing a solid job on the glass, got injured in mid-December, has not been seen ever since then for a Northwestern State team that is pretty mid-tempo. They turn the ball over about 13.5 times per contest. There's just really not a lot to love for this Northwestern State team. It's a Northwestern State team that's also getting gashed on defense in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. They are well outside the top 225, and this is also a Northwestern State team that is going to need to deal with the overall size that you've got for Southeast Louisiana. Roger McFarland is a do-it-all player at 6'5", 13.5 points, 7.5 boards, shoots in the mid-30s from three-point range. Bowden Woodbury has been able to do a solid job with his frame about 6'10", being able to pile up about 5.5 rebounds per game. And then Alec Woodard, how about him being a do-it-all player? 9 points, 4 boards, a little bit over a steal on 32% three-point shooting. It is a Northwestern State team that certainly has been giving it up from the arc as well. Northwestern State, in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage, they're about 176th in all of college basketball. For Southeast Louisiana, this has been a little bit of a kryptonite of theirs at 288th in all of college basketball. But with this Northwestern State team, you really don't have the guys to take advantage of this. And on top of that, with this Northwestern State team, you just don't have anyone to be able to pull in their rebounds for you as well. So Northwestern State currently 331st in all of college basketball with regards to rebound rate for Southeast Louisiana. They've actually been one of the better teams of the conference at being able to glass at right around 223rd. So I do think that Southeast Louisiana wins from within, set them as a 14-point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay the number. And in terms of the total, I did set it at a 136 with the way that Northwestern State has heated up a little bit with their offense. They had a big outburst against New Orleans. Meanwhile, you've got a Southeast Louisiana team that is looking to play very, very slowly. And I do think that for this Northwestern State team, we're going to see this team fall back to earth just a little bit. So did set my total 136 diving under, and I'm going to be willing to lay it with Southeast Louisiana. 306-639, 306-640. It is Texas A&M Corpus Christi playing us to McNeese. McNeese State, a 5 to 5.5 point favorite. Your total between 141.5 and 142. I set McNeese as a 7.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay the number. It's a McNeese team that has really been doing a nice job of slowing down games. They're in the bottom 50 nationally in terms of total possessions per game, and they really maximize their possessions. McNeese, a top 45 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis, turning it over just 9.8 times per contest, while shooting as a collective 39.5% from three-point range. Their top 5 scorers, 4 of them shoot at least 40% from three-point range, with now being able to get a little bit more out of Mike Saunders. Mike Saunders comes in after he spent the beginning part of his career over at Cincinnati and Utah, has been a career about 32.5% three-point shooter, so I think that that's going to cool off a little bit, but he's been able to give the team 22 points in 2 games back. Shahada Wells has been your main man, 3 steals, 5 boards, 4.5 assists, 19 points on 41% three-point shooting. And then Christian Schulmate, he's able to give you darn near a double-double, 9.5 boards, 12.5 points per contest, going up against a Corpus Christi team that does rank in the top 100 in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis. They've done a really good job of being able to guard the three-point arc, a top 125 team with that regard as well. And for Corpus Christi, this team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, when they are in their friendly confines at home, this has been a top 40 defense in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis at home. As a matter of fact, a top 25 defense with this respect, but they do have to go up against a McNeese team that they just have much better guard play than what they've seen all season long. To the credit of Texas A&M Corpus Christi, you've got Gary Clark down low, able to give you about 12 points, 8.5 rebounds per game. Nobody else on the roster gives you north of 5.6 rebounds per game, yet they're a team that does rank in the top 60 nationally with regards to rebound rate. You've got Dane Prim, who's come in from Northwestern St. He's been able to give you those about 5.5 or so rebounds per game, so I do like what he's been able to do for this bunch, but they go up against a McNeese team that has been one of the best teams at being able to the road all season long. McNeese is another top 125 team with regards to their rebound rate, and Corpus Christi just flat out doesn't have enough shot making to be able to win this game, in my opinion. They shoot 28.2% from three-point range. Each of their top 3 scorers, there are only guys that give you north of 8.2 points per contest. They all shoot 27.5% or less from three-point range. Texas A&M Corpus Christi has done a good job of winning the turnover battle as well, despite being a slightly up-tempo team. This team has only turned the ball over about 12 times per contest, so they've been relatively reliable there, but this is a McNeese team that has been able to get things played at their tempo all season long. Corpus Christi, we're on 115th in the country with regards to total possessions per game. I do think that they get slowed down by a McNeese team that has been a top 100 defense in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis all season long, and I do think that with Christian Schulmate giving you double-double and having all those guards yards. That's just going to take it out of this Corpus Christi team, especially with McNeese now having given up fewer than 70 points in every one of their games that they have played this calendar year. And for this McNeese team, they have given up 72 points or fewer, and now all but 3 of the games that they have played thus far this season against Division I competition. So I did set my total at a 135.5. This is a Corpus Christi team that, by the way, has played more than 70% of their games to the under. So looking under, and with McNeese, want to lay up to 7 points with them. 306-641, 306-642. It is Incarnate Word playing us at Nicholls. Nicholls just find themselves as a 3.5 point favorite. Your total is 146 or 146.5 with Nicholls. I set them as just a 2-point favorite. So being able to get 3+, I'm going to be taking a look at the points with Incarnate Word. Reinforcements have arrived for Incarnate Word as Alex Anderson, who was beginning his career out there in the SWAC, he's come in and now he's been able to give the team 9 points, 3 boards, 3 assists. So that does elevate an Incarnate Word team that certainly has had a tough time taking care of the ball. 16 turnovers per game. In terms of turnovers on a per possession basis, that is a bottom 40 mark in all of college basketball, though you do have Josiah Hammonds, Sky Wicks being able to combine for about 28 points. This team does need a little bit more direction with regards to facilitation, but Elijah Davis has stepped up, being able to give this team 3+ assists per contest, and they are going to be going up against a squad of Nicholls that they just don't force the seals that they did a season ago. Last year, this was a bunch that really over the last few years under Austin Claunch, who decided in the offseason he would move on and take an assistant coaching role over at Alabama, that they would always generate a bunch of turnovers. You still do have Deontay Smith giving you 2.5 steals, 14 points, 6.5 boards at right around about 6'5", 6'6", shoots 38.5% from 3-point range, and forgot Jamal West chipping in there, 8.5 boards, 16.5 points per game. But with this Nicholls team, it is a little bit of a top-heavy team in terms of points allowed on a per-possession basis. This is not the same defense that we have seen in past years. 253rd in all of college basketball. Not to say that Incarnate Word is lighting the world on fire at 306th, but that said, I do think that Incarnate Word going to be able to do a relatively solid job of being able to find some holes against the Nicholls defense, whose forte is actually being able to guard the arc. They're 42nd in all of college basketball with regards to opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. That certainly does trump Incarnate Word, a team that, with regards to opponents' 3-point shooting percentage, clocking in right around about 165th. That falls to about 31.6% when they are at home, but it's also a Nicholls team turned the ball over north of 13 times per contest. I was expecting a little bit more this season out of someone like Malik Thomas. He has been out of the fold for much of the campaign. That has been hampering them quite a bit. So Robert Brown III has had to step up, giving the team 33% 3-point shooting, has went for 16+ points in 4 of the team's last 5 games. But this is an Incarnate Word team that, with getting Anderson back to the fold, I do think that it's going to be able to help them out a little bit more offensively, defensively. It's been a mess for the team. They've given up 74+ points in each of their last 5 games. Meanwhile, you've got a Nicholls team that, in regulation, they have been held to fewer than 70 points in 3 out of their last 4 games. So, good old situation of something's got to give. I do think that this is going to be an up-tempo game. It's an Incarnate Word team that still is in the top 75 in terms of total possessions per game, and it is an Incarnate Word team that's just absolutely giving it up. So, did set my total at 150. I'm going to be taking a look at this total over. And when it comes to Nicholls, going to make them a 2-point favorite, so going to be taking the points with the Word as well. 306-643, 306-644. It is Lamar. They play us to Texas A&M Commerce. Commerce is an underdog of 5 to 5.5 points. Totals between 147.5 and 148. I did sell Lamar as an 8-point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay this number. It is a Lamar team that has really been able to do a nice job of bombing it from 3-point range, and they have pushed their tempo. Texas A&M Commerce is a team that's right around about 125th with regards to total possessions per game. Lamar is a top 50 team, and Lamar is one of those holes greater than the sum of its parts teams. Each of their top 4 scorers all give you between 11 and 11.7 points per game. You've been able to have Scary Terry Anderson coupled with Chris Pryor be the main guys for this team in terms of facilitation, with a little bit over 6 assists per contest, and Pryor is now shooting about 40% from 3-point range. It is a Lamar team that they're going to be able to generate a few turnovers as well. They're getting about 6 steals per game. Lamar certainly does leave themselves prone to giving up some open 3-point looks. They are allowing opponents to shoot in the pocket about 36.5% from 3-point range. That is a bottom 40 mark in all of college basketball, but this is also a Texas A&M Commerce team that, when they are playing at home, this team has been allowing opponents to shoot right in the neighborhood about 38% from 3-point range. That actually falls to closer to about 31.5% in a roadside shoot corner environment. So very funky split there. I do think that that is one that's going to be ironing out as the season goes along, and it is a Commerce team that they just really lack that oomph from the outside, and going up against a Lamar team that does a very good job of being able to seek the ball. They're a top 50 team with regards to turnovers forced on a per possession basis. I do think that that's going to take that out of them a little bit. And then you've also got so many other ancillary pieces like a Deshaun Jackson, Jakevion Buckley, for Lamar. They're both shooting north of 36.5% from three. They both give you about 8 points per contest, while this Commerce team doesn't have a single guy in the roster that gives you north of 4.6 rebounds per game. That would be Jerome Brewer. Has been able to give you 14 points, 4.5 boards, and then you've also been able to get right around about 14 points, 3 assists out of Caitlin Williams. Williams shoots about 32% from three, but all in all, it's a Commerce team that doesn't have any size. They shoot 32.5% from three-point range. Not to say that Lamar is any sort of a juggernaut with regards to their rebounding. In terms of rebound rate, Lamar currently clocking in 178th in all of college basketball, but this is a Texas A&M Commerce team that's 359th. I do think that they lose the battle down low, and with Lamar being the better three-point shooting team, I do think that they're going to get it done against a Commerce team that was able to knock off St. Joe's unbelievably earlier in the season, but has really been scuffling with their offense, 68 points or fewer in 4 of their last 5 games, going up against the Lamar team that they've been pretty solid with regards to their offense, 75 plus in 4 out of their last 5 games. So it is a spot where I'm going to be willing to lay with Lamar, made them an 8-point favorite, and did set my total at a 148 with the way that Lamar has been able to generate their offense. So here at a 147.5, looking over, and I'm going to be willing to lay it with Lamar. This is going to be my DK Network write-up pick, 306-645, 306-646. It's Houston Christian playing goes to New Orleans. New Orleans, a 2.5-point favorite. Saw a few twos out there as well. Totals between 157 and 158. My write-up is going to be on New Orleans. I did set them as a 6.5-point favorite. New Orleans comes in, having lost back-to-back games, was bad for them on defense, and it is a New Orleans team that has given up 73 plus points in each of their last 5 games. That said, they've got the number 6 scorer in all of college basketball in Jordan Johnson, who's giving you 21.8 points, 4 assists, shooting 38.5% from three-point range. I think that he's going to take you to a Houston Christian team that I legitimately think is a bottom 10 team in all of college basketball. Houston Christian, despite the fact that they've got a pair of guys that give you north of 7.5 rebounds per game, this is a squad that they've had all sorts of issues with regards to their defense. They're currently nationally ranked 359th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, allowing opponents to shoot 24.8% from three-point range, while they also rank 330th in all of college basketball in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis when they are playing at home. It is a New Orleans team that has been able to do a relatively solid job of being able to force turnovers on the road, 60th in the country with regards to turnovers forced per defensive play on the road, going up against the Houston Christian team that's a bottom 20 team nationally in terms of taking care of the ball, north of 17 turnovers per game. You've been able to have Michael Imarajabe, hopefully I said that correctly, along with Bonke Maring, be able to combine for about 17 rebounds per game. But when it comes to this Houston Christian team, the fact that they shoot 24.8% from three, second worst in all of college basketball, that's a big giant red flag. And among players that have been able to score north of 10 total points this far this season, that's not 10 points per game, that's 10 total points. You've got 2 guys on the roster that are currently shooting north of 23% from three-point range. One of those guys is Marcus Green, 14 points, 3.5 boards, 3.5 assists. I do like what I'm seeing out of him, but it's a Houston Christian team that they're just rhymeless and reasonless when it comes to New Orleans, and the guys that support Jordan Johnson, they could use a little bit more down low themselves. Javon Vincent at 6'4" is the team's leading rebounder with about 5.8 rebounds per game, but Caleb Wilson-Rouse, who's come over after he spent some time, I believe, out there in the WCC along with Wagner, has been able to give you 10.5 points, 1.6 steals per contest. Not to say that New Orleans is amazing with their defense, but with the way that they're able to rip the ball away and with the way that they should be able to do an okay job on the glass, I do think that they should be able to get it done. New Orleans just 336th in all of college basketball with regards to rebound rate, but despite the fact that Houston Christian has more top flight rebounding, they are just 288th in the country with this regard as well. It is a Houston Christian team that just all of a sudden has been able to do a solid job of being able to guard the three-point arc as well. It's a Houston Christian team that they're in the top 50 with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage, but New Orleans, they're also a top 100 team with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage. And if you look at the way that they are giving it up inside the arc, Houston Christian, out of 362 Division I teams, they are a bottom 30 team in terms of opponents' two-point shooting percentage, 331st in all of college basketball, with opponents shooting 55.1% from inside the arc in their home games. That is a bottom 25 mark in the country. So it is a circumstance where my write-up is going to be on New Orleans. I do think that the top player in this game, Jordan Johnson, lifts them to victory against the Houston Christian team that is all sorts of rudderless in general. And I did set my total 158.5. Houston Christian, a top 20 team in terms of total possessions per game, and a team that is getting completely gashed on the defensive side of things, and legitimately both of these teams well outside the top 250. In terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. So my DK Network right to pick is on New Orleans laying the number and going to be taking a look at the over. 306, 647, 306, 648. Alcorn State plays us to Prairie View. Prairie View finds themselves as 3 to 3.5 point underdogs. Your total on this game is 151, and with Prairie View, I did set them as a 3-point underdog. So seeing a 3.5 out there, I'm going to be willing to take the points with Prairie View. It's a Prairie View team that their lifeblood is turnovers. They're a top 75 team in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis, a bottom team in all of college basketball with regards to rebound rate, but fortunately for them, it's not like Alcorn State necessarily has a whole boatload of size as well. For Alcorn State, they're currently 292nd in all of college basketball with regards to rebound rate. Having Jeremiah Kendall be able to give them 16.5 points, 7 boards per contest, and Brian Miles should be able to match up with them, giving you about 7.5 rebounds per game for a Prairie View team that they're not amazing with their 3-point shooting, but out of their top 5 scorers, 4 of them shoot at least 33.3% from 3-point range in the SWAC. That's actually not too bad, with having Charles Smith be able to give you 14 points, a little bit over a steal, shooting in the mid-30s from 3-point range for this Prairie View team. They do that good job of being able to generate the 9.7 steals per game, but they also do give it back a little bit as well, with north of 13 turnovers per contest of their own. And it's an Alcorn State team that they don't really seek out as many steals, but at the same time, they turn the ball over 12 times per contest. They're shooting 31.5% from distance, but where you can really hurt this Alcorn State team is with the fact that they are very, very lackluster with regards to their defense, especially their interior defense. They are 360th in all of college basketball with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, more like 197th in all of college basketball with regards to turnovers forced on a per possession basis. So they don't match up very well with Prairie View, a team that's in the top 75 with that regard. And for Alcorn State, 349th in the country with regards to opponents' 3-point shooting percentage as well. So lots of red flags there. You've got Byron Joshua, DeCadrian Thorne, who have both been able to combine to shoot about 30% from 3, 18.5 points per contest. Now, these two guys, they do generate about 3 steals per contest, but with this Alcorn State team being as awful as they are defensively, and this Prairie View team, I'm not going to say that they're great by any stretch of imagination on defense. They're 226th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, but it is a Prairie View team that, at the very least, they're able to do something right in being able to generate turnovers. It is a Prairie View team that's now given up fewer than 70 points in 3 out of their first 4 games out there in the SWAC, and you've got an Alcorn State team that's really been scuffling with their offense. Since SWAC play began, they have scored 74 points or fewer in 3 out of their 4 games, and they have been held below 61 points in each of their last 2 games. Defense still has been awful, to say the least, against Division I opponents. So you throw out there the non-D1 games that they played, and there have been a few of them. They have given up at least 72 points in all but one of them thus far this season. So I do think that you're going to be getting a little bit more scoring than expected, which is why I did set my total at a 151. Right now, we are seeing this pretty much at a 151 across the board. We were seeing a little bit earlier some 152s out there. If we can reach that 152 mark, going to be looking at the under, but at north of 3, going to be looking at the points with Prairie View. 306, 649, 306, 650. Arkansas Pine Bluff plays us Bethune-Cookman. Bethune-Cookman is an underdog of 2 points. So on this game, 165 to 165.5. Arkansas Pine Bluff, your top team in all of college basketball with regards to overrate. All but 2 of their games have gone either over the total or have pushed the total. I'm looking at the over. I set my total at 166.5. Bethune-Cookman, a team that's in the top 125 in terms of total possessions per game. And Bethune-Cookman, they were able to give up just 64 points against Mississippi Valley State. Not very much is a metrics warper, just because when Mississippi Valley State had 362 Division I teams, they ranked 362nd in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. You throw that massive outlier out of the fold, they have given up at least 72 points in all but one of their other games thus far this season, and this Pine Bluff team is just getting completely gashed. They have given up north of 75 points in all but 2 of their games against Division I foes thus far this season, but they're able to knock down shots. Rashad Williams along with Kylan Melton have been able to combine for about 37 points per contest, both shooting north of 37.5% from 3, while Joe French, 16.5 points, CO per game, shoots 42% from 3-point range. While Arkansas Pine Bluff does a good job of being able to hit their threes, and they are shooting 38.5% from 3. That is a top 25 mark in all of college basketball. This Pine Bluff team also 322nd in all of college basketball with regards to opponents' 3-point shooting percentage, and for Pine Bluff, when they're at home, they allow opponents to shoot north of 38% from 3-point range, and it's a Bethune-Cookman team that's only shooting about 30% from 3-point range, but we've got a nice trio with this team, with Jacoby Hattie, along with the former top 200 recruit in Zion Harmon, along with Deshaun Dyson, all being able to give you at least 13.9 points per contest. Harmon is your main facilitator with 4.2 assists per contest. Heedy is able to shoot about 33.5% for three. It is a Bethune-Cookman team that they do turn the ball over about 15.5 times per contest, but they're one of the best at being able to generate steals. You've got Damani McIntyre, who's got one of the most ridiculous splits I've ever seen. 3.1 points and 2.8 steals per contest. That's just absolutely ridiculous. This is a Bethune-Cookman team that, in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis, right now they rank 13th in all of college basketball, and in a road/shoot-record environment that actually ascends to the top 5. This is a Pine Bluff team, though, that they do a relatively solid job of being able to take care of the ball. Ishmael Platt, I do think, is going to be able to do a relatively solid job down low, give you 6 rebounds per game, while Elijah Ellisway has been able to give you about 6 rebounds per game as well for Bethune-Cookman. So it is a spot where I think that you get a very up and down game. Arkansas Pine Bluff in the top 25 in terms of total possessions per game, a rocket ship on offense, and a sieve on defense. Did set Bethune-Cookman as a 2.5 point road favorite because I do think that they generate those turnovers, turn that defense into offense. So looking at the over, and I'm liking Bethune-Cookman outright on the money line. 3 of 6, 651, 3 of 6, 652. Mississippi Valley State plays us to Florida A&M. A&M finds themselves as 7 to 7.5 point favorite, seeing a few 8s pop up as well. Thought on games between 134.5 and 135. Opener was 7, and I did make my number 8. So here at the 7.5, really up to 7.5, I'm going to be willing to lay the number. It's a Florida A&M team going up against a Mississippi Valley State squad that is dead last in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, dead last in the country in terms of ball security, 17.2 turnovers per game. This Mississippi Valley State team shoots 62.2% of the free throw line, 27.5% from three-point range, and they've legitimately got 3 players giving you north of 4.3 points per contest, as it's been the Raquan Brown show for Mississippi Valley State. 6 boards, a steal, 16.5 points per game. Meanwhile, you've been able to have Areco Gibson be able to erect something recently with 9 points, 4.5 rebounds per game, and Donovan Sanders has been able to give you 10.5 points per contest. Those are really the only guys who are giving you anything whatsoever for Mississippi Valley State, who's also one of the worst teams with regards to rebound rate in all of college basketball. Now, the good news for them is that they are going up against a Florida A&M team that has been just getting completely pressure cookered on defense in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Florida A&M 358th in all of college basketball, but you've been able to get 6 boards, 14 points out of Keith Lamar. 6'6" combo players, not shooting 39% from three-point range. Last year, Florida A&M was ghastly on offense, but okay on defense. This year, they're ghastly on defense, but okay on offense, even though they do turn the ball over about 14.5 times per contest, and they could just use a little bit of consistency from Love Bettis being out there on the floor. He finally returned against Arkansas Pine Bluff, but it was only for like 1 to 2 minutes, so I don't think we're going to be seeing too much of him. I do think that you're still going to be able to get just enough out of someone like a Keijai Parker, who's come in. He's been able to give the team a little bit over 8 points per contest. It's really been able to step up recently for the team. It's also a Florida A&M team that does have their issues down low. Other than Lamar, you don't have anyone else that gives you north of 4.1 rebounds per game, but with Mississippi Valley State also being a bottom 10 team in all of college basketball in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and this Mississippi Valley State team doing absolutely nothing with regards to their interior defense in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. They're well outside the top 225 with that regard as well. I do think that Florida A&M gets the job done. Willing to lay up to 7.5 with them, and did set my total at 134. Even though Mississippi Valley State has a golden opportunity against bad defense, I don't think that they take advantage. So looking at the under and willing to lay it with Florida A&M, and we wrap things up with 3 of 6, 653, 3 of 6, 654. It's Jackson State playing us to Texas Southern. Texas Southern, an underdog of 5 points, totals between 140.5 and 141.5. Did set my total 136.5. It's not quite Mississippi Valley State level bad, but for Texas Southern, they're a bottom 10 team in all of college basketball in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, and you just can't be that when you're outside the top 275 with regards to rebound rate in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Texas Southern clocking in 183rd, so they haven't been a complete abject disaster there, but for Jackson State, they're going to have by far the best scorer out there on the floor, and this is a Jackson State team that they're certainly going to be willing to give up their 3-point looks to you, but that said, I just don't think that Texas Southern is going to be able to take advantage of them. As for Texas Southern, they do have PJ Henry, who's able to give you double figures throughout his career. He's been a low to mid 30% 3-point shooter coming over from Hartford, but he just doesn't compare to Ken Evans. 18.5 points, 5 boards, 2.5 assists for Jackson State while shooting 44.5% from 3 and a steal and a half per contest. He has gotten to at least 19 points so far the last 5 games, 15 plus in every one of them. Jackson State also down low as we have Zeke Cook be able to be a cook in 7.5 rebounds per contest out of him for a Jackson State team that they only shoot about 32.5% from 3-point range, but you've got another 40% 3-point shooter in Jordan O'Deal, who was able to give you about 6 boards, 12.5 points per contest, a block and a half per game, and he's really hit mock turbo recently. 6 plus boards, at least 2 blocks, and 12 points in each of the team's last 4 games. Meanwhile, you just don't have that top-end talent when it comes to Texas Southern. You've got Johnson Cisse, who's coming from Incarnate, work, giving you about 2.5 assists, shoots 41.5% from 3-point range, but the team as a whole, they're still shooting only about 38.7% from the floor. And for Texas Southern, typically this is a team that has a really good rebound rate, and they give it up from the outside. Well, that rebound rate is way down, and for Texas Southern, they're still outside the top 200 with regards to opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. Meanwhile, it is a Jackson State team that, if you're looking to beat them, they are allowing opponents to shoot about 35% from 3. That's 250th in all of college basketball. Just don't think that Texas Southern knocks down those outside shots. Semi-total 136.5, diving under, and Jackson State won to lay up to 8 with them, and that will wrap things up for the Monday edition of Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN family and podcast. A big thanks to Mike Randle of FDN Network for joining me in the live segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, do have one of 2 ways we fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at Jaden_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM. Naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire on whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Coming at you guys every single day throughout the college basketball season. That means I'm coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.